So welcome, Graham and everyone. This is we're having our first guest today. So we'll just see how this goes, and could be our last guest. Graham, look, I'm not sure what you want to share, but I'm sort of interested in, like going back as far as you like to even like, a brief sort of story about your childhood and your upbringing, what maybe led you to where you are today. So, and along the way, like where your spiritual journey perhaps first started when you were a bit younger, and what brought you to A Course in Miracles, and maybe we'll ask questions along the way if we're not sure about something, we want to know more information. So how does that sound to you?
Yeah, that sounds fine. Yeah, happy to do that. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I suppose going back to my childhood, I was born into a family of atheists. So there was no belief in God, or there was no sort of spiritual religious background or anything of that sort of nature. And I suppose I seem to remember my childhood as a young boy. There seemed to be a lot of love in the house, and then I got to kind of like a certain age and that love seemed to be withdrawn. Things started to change for me. I kind of went off the rails quite a lot, and my parents didn't know how to handle me. So by the age of 14, I was already an alcoholic, taking drugs, doing a lot of crazy stuff really. And I was hanging around with a certain type of people, but I was doing things like sniffing petrol and nail varnish remover, and yeah, just not really attending school, and just, yeah, it just sort of like went quite off the rails. That sort of continued into my teenage years and sort of like beyond. I just thought it was normal because everyone around me was doing the same sort of things, living the same way. They all seemed to have dysfunctional families as well. So I just took it as normal. Really got to a stage where there's quite a few incidents where I was lucky I didn't die, actually, to be honest. I nearly ran over once. I just collapsed in the middle of a busy road in the middle of the day after I drank a bottle of vodka, and the bus driver actually parallel sort of parked his bus across the road to stop any cars running me over. I had no knowledge of any of this. I started to get into fights in nightclubs. I had my nose broken in a nightclub. Somebody headbutted me on a nightclub and broke my nose. I didn't even feel it because I was that drunk. So it was kind of like I was blocking everything out. My mum seemed to be constantly on my case. I didn't think that she loved me at all. That was my perception because of the way she treated me. I got to the age of 24, still going along this cycle. I met someone in Australia, future wife Billy, on a holiday. As I've now told Billy, I couldn't wait to come and move to Australia, but the main reason I wanted to move to Australia was not for her, not for love, which was in her case, she wanted me to come for love. It was to escape the life that I had, to escape my mum. I couldn't wait to get away from my mum, and to escape this. I just couldn't see a way out of this alcoholism. I wasn't a drug addict, but I would take drugs every weekend. Like, I wasn't dependent on them. To escape this cycle, I moved out here to Australia. So the relationship with Billy wasn't on any kind of foundations of love. There was a lot of resentment from me. Anyway, we continued, we had children, just continued along that path. And instead of, my life improving, it just took on, the pain and suffering, if you like, just took on different forms. So I've always had this like obsessive compulsive behavior. So when I start something, I've quickly become addicted to it, dependent upon it. Wow, when I think of all the things I've been dependent on and addicted to, it's quite incredible. I kind of joke about this, that it's only really, gambling's probably the only thing that I've not been addicted to or found like a compulsive urge to do. So there's been, initially I started getting into bodybuilding. So at the start, that was like a release from all the pain and suffering that was happening in my life. But then that quickly developed into a dependency on steroids. So I started using steroids to get the physique that I wanted. to get, you know, like this 6-pack, this washboard stomach, but it come at a heavy cost because, you know, kind of like deprive yourself of certain foods to achieve that body, and training at the gym twice a day, and also emotionally completely changes the person you are. I started getting complaints at work. I'm a tram driver at work, and I've done that job for the last 15 years, and I'm so blessed to do that job because it really is a spiritual practice for me. I suppose I'll get into that a little bit more later, but I was getting complaints at work. I was having arguments with passengers, showing aggressive tendencies. So I was addicted to steroids, and then that developed into a sex addiction. So when I with the sex addiction, it was okay, to get sex, it was any way that I could, and it was with anybody. So I had a couple of affairs, and from on Billy, a couple of situations there where I had relationships with other people. I was visiting gay saunas, just any way to get sex. It didn't matter who with, it didn't matter what they looked like, it didn't matter. The alcoholism came back, started using recreational drugs again, smoking ice, crack, cocaine. It's just been, wow, overwhelming really, when I think about all the things that I've done to sort of like make myself feel better, block out. Masturbation was another one. I would masturbate to several times a day sometimes. Again, trying to make myself feel better, trying to get this sort of like pleasure and avoid pain. So that pretty much covers, and it's not necessarily they all came in a certain order. These are kind of just things that's been in the picture over a number of years. I suppose the turnaround and the beauty of all this is, like, you know, we're often go through this pain and suffering. Actually, I think it's worth mentioning that in this mix, there was 2 major incidents in my life. One was I just started work, so this was around 15 years ago. I just started work. I was driving a tram. I think I'd only been on the job for 3 months, and I was driving through an intersection, and I had a green light, and somebody ran across the road, and they hit the side of the tram. They bounced off the side of the tram, and they hit the head on the pavement. They died later that day in hospital. So the guilt from that was overbearing. I mean, it quickly was sort of like proven that it wasn't my fault. This person obviously wasn't looking where they were going. They ran across the red light, and I didn't see them. But they also later had an inquest into that whole incident, and it was more of an inquest in how they could improve the safety in that area, because there'd been a number of accidents in that area. So that was a heavy burden. And then my best friend committed suicide. He hung himself. There was a lot of problems at home. He had 2 kids the same age as mine. And the day before he hung himself, I had spent the day with him at the zoo with my kids, and I knew he was clearly troubled, but I didn't think he was going to take that next step. I felt the responsibility and the guilt from that for a long time too. So all these kind of things were in the mix as well, adding to that. Really about 8 years ago now, this is a perfection of the journey. I was kind of just pushed into this surrender of like nothing else was working. I never committed suicide, but I often thought about it. And the only thing that stopped me committing suicide was my children and my wife, because I knew when my best friend had committed suicide, I knew what it had done to his family. So that was there. And I got really sick. I was taking this was the time I was taking steroids, and I got really sick. I lost, I think, 20 kilos in about 8 or 9 months. Couldn't eat anything. I couldn't function. I couldn't work. I stopped going to work. I had like chronic fatigue. I couldn't get out of bed or want to get out of bed, and no one could tell me what was wrong with me. I had all these tests, blood tests, and everything just kept saying this perfectly fine. It's just a mystery virus. Some things can't be explained, and you've just got to ride it out. That's basically what I was told. But the fear of not knowing what was wrong with me was just kind of like eating me up inside. Couldn't sleep. One of the main things I couldn't sleep. I was given these sleeping pills, and I'm like, something inside me, even though I had no kind of spiritual background or anything, something inside of me was like, don't take these pills. Don't take these pills. And same with the antidepressants. Don't take them. That's not the answer, to take antidepressants. And I actually walked into a health food shop in Yarraville, for people in Melbourne who know Yarraville. I went in there for some melatonin to help me sleep, like a natural sort of therapy to help me sleep. The guy in there struck up a friendship, and he helped me. And over the coming months, I sort of physically rebuilt my health with his help. I was taking like these natural food supplements and natural kind of remedies for certain things, and I started to improve. And like I really know now, there was a decision deep within me to get well again. That went on for a few months, and then he mentioned the Course in Miracles to me, because he was a student of the Course in Miracles. I'm like, nah, this is just like so far removed from anything. I'm not open to this at all. Yet, I've tried every other way, so I'm willing to try it, because at this stage, I was down to about 65 kilos, I think. My legs were like matchsticks, and okay, I'll try it. And I started to read a little bit of it, and it's just like made no sense at all. I'm just like, I was overwhelmed by it. I couldn't understand a word of it. I didn't believe in God, never mind Jesus, or the teaching. It was so radical. There is no world, not a body, everything's an illusion. It's like, yeah, this is way too much for me. But I'm like, yeah, there's again something inside of me that's just like, just keep going with it, because the alternative is jumping off a bridge. Like that's the only way left now. It's like I'm just so suffering so much misery. So I, started to read it and started to sort of like make some research about it, and discovered The Disappearance of the Universe by Gary Renard. And I started to read that, and that still made no sense, but it made a little bit more sense. And then I bought The Disappearance of the Universe on an audio CD, and for months and months, that's all I listened to when I was in the car driving anyway. I just listened to The Disappearance of the Universe over and over and over again, and things started to sink in, and I started to put some of the things into practice that it was asking me to do, and I started to see this positive change in my life. And then all of a sudden I started to call other people in on a similar path that was going through similar experiences. And it's quite often in this course, people that have had really challenging lives are drawn to this, because it's like, it's Course in Miracles. What it's asking, it's like, you generally got to be in this place of utter despair to even pick it up or even start thinking about it along those lines, because people that are happy, so to speak, they don't do a Course in Miracles. It's people that have like been pushed into this almost kind of like utter despair and suffering. But that's the perfection of like what we're being shown. It's like we're being forced into this, almost like with this surrender to be open to this other way. I suppose I thought I was dedicating my life to A Course in Miracles, but for many, when I say for a few years there, it was kind of like here and there. So there was a letting go. I'll be diligent for a few days, doing a workbook lesson, and then I'd just fall away, or I'd go on a weekend bender and just get on the drugs and the drink again and things like that, or put myself in a situation where I was, having a relationship with someone behind Billy's back, and the guilt would be, and like it was like I didn't have the strength to completely take it on board. There was a period in this last 8 years, after about 3 or 4 years, where I actually stopped studying the Course in Miracles for 18 months. I just stopped. I was carrying the book everywhere with me, but I wasn't opening up, I wasn't looking at it, I wasn't reading it. And it actually took me 5.5 years to do the workbook lessons the first time around. Within that 18 months, I come to realize I actually was letting go, and I was practicing the Course in Miracles in those 18 months. I just wasn't really consciously aware of it. There was still shifts, there was still changes happening in my life. And then around 3 years ago, I just made this like conscious decision. Like it was like being on this hamster on a wheel of just going around and around and around and around, and seemingly just treading water and getting these glimpses of joy, but nothing lasting, nothing sustaining. And I was still seeking outside myself. I was still looking at all these things to make me feel better. And like, it's quite funny because, most people seem to sort of project their guilt onto others. I'm more of a person that kind of just projects the guilt onto myself. It's like I just go to town on myself, like rather than blame anyone else. I just absolutely slave myself. Days, sometimes days of not even leaving the house, and just like work. I think, you know, like work were really understanding because I had so many days off. Yeah, it was kind of like, am I going to go all in with this? Sort of like a couple of things that kind of just pushed me into that. Like, okay, right now, this is just a dedication now to this spiritual practice. And that's what I did about 3 years ago. I just totally dedicated myself to the Course in Miracles, like every waking moment. I just stopped watching TV, movies. I was going to groups, reading the book, watching YouTubes, you know, listening to Kay, listening to other teachers I really resonate with, like Stephen Dean's another one that I've always really resonated with, Course in Miracles teacher, and really immersing myself in the practice. And not just, it's kind of like that period of collating all this knowledge, and it's been awesome because like this knowledge that I've picked up along the way pops back into my head as and when I need it, was very useful, but I wasn't really living it. I wasn't living the Course in Miracles. I wasn't putting it into practice. And when I started to really do that, then things really started to change for me. And one thing that I'd never had was a guide, so to speak. So like, you know, a symbol of my inner guide, if you like, you know, like I'd never really had a Jesus or a Holy Spirit. I'd never really identified with those or resonated with them. And then I found Bruno Greening. Some of you may be familiar with Bruno Greening, some of you may not be, but he was a spiritual healer in the 1950s. His path's a beautiful path. It's about taking a divine path back to God. It's a healing of yourself through the Hailstrom, which is God's energy, which is accessible to everyone. You can take in this power, it's God's power and energy. I really identified with the teaching, but I wasn't looking to take on another spiritual practice. So I'd already been to the dinner table, if you like, the spiritual smorgasbord, and tried all these different things and really settled on Course in Miracles was my path. And I kind of dismissed it. It's hard to explain, but he came into my life, and there was no way I was getting rid of him, whether I wanted to or not. It was just, I actually started seeing him behind my eyes. It was like he was thinking for me. He sort of like took control almost, and I decided to allow this to happen. And what he's been since then is my guide. So it was kind of like the missing piece of the jigsaw, this guidance of listening to the right mind, if you like. And I know I've come to realize it's just a symbol for that. It's actually within me. But before there was kind of no way of knowing what voice I was listening to, whether I was listening to the voice of love or whether I was listening to the voice of hate. I was really confused about that. And I got a lot of clarity about that with Bruno. And it really was a massive turning point. You know, I've now seen the perfection in all these relationships, which were an absolute disaster, you know, in form, especially the one with my mum. I never thought I would ever heal the relationship with my mum. I hated her. I actually loathed her to the point where I wanted her to die. I just hated her. She was the blame, everything that was going wrong for me. But I've seen a beautiful healing in the relationships of people, and they become holy relationships. Certainly the relationship with my mum, like it was so volatile, even though I was over here, you know, in Australia, and she was there in the UK. I couldn't even have a 1 hour conversation with her on the telephone without hanging the phone up, or her hanging the phone up on me. And okay, I'm all in with this now. So I decided to start working on that week by week. I'd work on the triggers. I'd write the triggers down, and I'd go away and I'd look at it, and I'd go for a forgiveness process, or I'd go for a Byron Katie. I'm sure all of you there are familiar with Byron Katie's work, or I'd journal on it. One of my favourite things I've done on this path is journal and write everything out, all the filth, all the hate, you know, until my fingers hurt, and then quite often symbolically burn it as a letting go. But journaling, obviously, there was a forgiveness process there for a long time too, which is a little bit different for me now, but I'll get to that. Yeah, I'd work with the triggers every week and start to try and see it differently, start to try and see it with love. And then we had a conversation. I started opening up about my life with her and all the hurt and pain that she caused me. And she just told me something that she'd never told anybody before, that as a child, and no one knew this, she was sexually abused. Like, it all made sense to me. You know, she just didn't know how to be a parent. She didn't know how to show love. You know, she thought she was doing, you know, best. She thought she was like trying to defend me by being the way she was. She was trying to like show me a tough love, if you like, or whatever. She didn't realize the impact it had made on me. And then I started to realize too, you know what, I've made a lot of this up in my head along the way. It wasn't that bad. There was love there. I really started to see it differently. Things started to improve. And then the real catalyst for it was one day she was just going on and on about this negative monologue, and she was then started projecting on me and shouting at me. And I just said to her, look, Mum, I'm just going to say from now on, I don't care how much that you shout at me, how much you yell at me, how many times you hang the phone up on me, how many times you tell me this and that. She used to say, when I was like growing up, she used to call me a selfish bastard every day of my life. Like every day of my life, she would call me a selfish bastard. It doesn't matter how many times you say that to me, I'm just going to love you no matter what. I'm just going to respond with love. I just don't care anymore what seems to be happening in form. I'm just going to hold love for you in my heart. And she started crying. And from that moment, it's just like this massive healing. I talk to her now and it's just pure joy. It's like there's so much love there. And if she starts to go into a negative monologue about things that are happening in the world or seemingly happening in the world, I'll just change the subject. And she just goes off onto the other subjects. And it's beautiful. It's like there's a complete healing of this relationship now with my mum and my dad, because my dad, there was many things that I held against my dad. And through this, I started to realize that it's not in them, it's not about them, it's in me. It's all my perception of the situation. It's got nothing to do with what they're doing in form. It's the way I look at it. And can I just keep responding with love? And I know it's not necessarily easy along this path, but you just keep working on it and handing it over and giving it away and working with the triggers and going through the forgiveness process. It just happened like one day, it just like happened in that moment, this massive healing. And it was the same with Billy. In all these years of marriage, we've been married for 20 years now. In the first, sort of like 17 years, never actually spoke to each other. I mean, truly spoke to each other. There's all these hidden things, these hidden, like my affairs and my cheating on her with, sex addiction and all these other things, and the drug addiction and stuff that she knew a large part of it, but a lot of it was kept hidden and secret. Basically, around 3 years ago, I just decided that the best thing to do was to let's just end this marriage. Let's just go our separate ways. In having this conversation, like when there was nothing left to lose, so to speak, and then everything was out on the table, like literally everything about me that she didn't know came out, and then there was a number of things that she'd actually had sort of cheated on me at one point, which I didn't know about. That came out, and there was like a total freedom, total letting go. Anything needed to be hidden, no secrets. This healing just happened in that moment. It's like there's nothing else left. There's nothing to lose. Let's just be totally open and honest about it. The amazing thing is, the very next day when I had gone to work, Billy was lying in bed and got a photo of Bruno Gröning on the wall, and she was staring at the photo of Bruno Gröning, and she says for about an hour, the photo of Bruno Gröning started to take on different forms. So it started to take on the form of our children, started to take on my form, her form, people that she knows, and even like almost alien type forms. But the message was clear that we're all one. We're not separate, and we're all still in God's heart, God's love. She had a spontaneous, there's people can call it an awakening, a realization, a shift. She had this spontaneous healing of coming into an awakened presence almost instantly. And the people that have been through this, Bar and Katie, had like a spontaneous awakening. And obviously all this in this lifetime, this is what it was all brought to this point for her to have this. And such clarity came through in that moment. It's like she's never had a spiritual practice. She never picked up a course in miracles, never meditated, not like nothing at all. No sort of religion or anything, just this spontaneous awakening, which has just got deeper and deeper. I mean, it's just an absolute joy to be around, and in the relationship, that we've got. It's so open and honest. Like everything's spoke about, discussed. There's nowhere for the ego to hide at all. It is a holy relationship, and it's just beautiful to extend this love to each other. And our children, with the children, been stories there of, Fletcher was born on the autism spectrum, and we were told that he'd never be able to play team sports and he'd never be able to socially interact with others and all these other things. He'd always have high anxiety. And yes, he did show all those traits, and I became quite controlling. I wanted to help him. I wanted to change him. I wanted to be there for him. I wanted to literally do everything for him, literally wipe his backside for him, because I felt that he needed me. There was a strong story there. And as I've gone along on this spiritual path and this deepening, if you like, I've let go of that control. I've seen him as capable, and I've seen him as innocent. I've seen him as perfect, and there's nothing wrong with him, and there's nothing to change. It's just to allow him to be, and in that, it's just transformed before my eyes. It's just like so beautiful. Like all the things they said they would never be able to do, he does, and he does with love. They're both just the most incredible kids. It's just constantly like this perfection of saying, like, if he's late for school, it's not my responsibility, and we'll let that go. And ultimately, if he's late and something happens at school, like he's suspended or something, then that's his forgiveness opportunity. It's not mine. It's only the way I look at it, and really, come to see that nothing's ever going right or wrong. Nothing's ever good or bad. It's like Shakespeare said like 500 years ago, nothing's ever good or bad. Only thinking makes it so, and it's so true. It's only our thoughts about it that make this label good or bad. About a year ago now, I had this massive shift when I was driving a tram. So I had these little shifts, but this massive shift when I was driving the tram. In fact, I've had 3 really big shifts. And they've all been while I've been driving the tram. So driving a tram is just so perfect, because I'm on my own in a cabin, isolated, and I've got time to just be present without distractions. I'm just driving, fine, relaxing. Everything that's happening around me, I just see as this TV screen, and this perfect opportunity to forgive or to reflect on how I think about that. I'm coming from love. Got really proficient at doing things like barring Katie thing in my mind as I'm driving, and rather than doing it on a piece of paper. So no distractions while I was working, and just the other day I was just driving along, and I'd had a phone call with Billy, and the line was really bad, and I couldn't hear her, and she couldn't hear me, and we couldn't communicate what we wanted to communicate to, and there was a slight trigger there. And just as I'm driving along, I just did a barring Katie in my head about it, and it's gone. It's like I can't even remember what it was about now. It's gone. And this big shift about a year ago, where for 3 days I was just in this place of perfect peace. It was almost like I had a force field around me, and everything just bounced off me. I didn't feel like an expansion of love and joy or anything. I was expecting to be like, you felt this big expansion. It wasn't like that, but there was a contentment, there was a peace there, and nothing anybody said or did, no matter what it was, even remotely, sort of penetrated this bubble. And it was so beautiful. And then after about 3 days, I started to digress. As I know, it's like it's all clearing. So, we clear away this old and make space for the love that's already present to be seen. It's like space is love, and it's just clearing this space to allow this love that's present to just be seen. Then I started to have glimpses of seeing that this is all a dream, like things like seeing myself as a cartoon character, flashes of myself as a cartoon character, and like a hologram. And other people as like holograms in form. Dreams of healing dreams. So dreams of people that had had issues within the past, and just being in total love in these dreams. No more sort of like nightmarish type things, scenarios. I'd always sort of like sat down in the mornings and gone through like a particular sort of, practice of sometimes when I was doing the workbook lessons, I might do a workbook lesson, or I might join with God or do rules for decision or something. I went through a period of sitting down in the mornings and just writing what came through me, you know, kind of like spiritual, I don't know what you call it, just like poems and little stories and stuff, and really share them with anybody other than the Pathways to Peace group. And you know, what came up was, you know, slowly as I'm letting go, this massive fear of telling anyone about my spiritual practice. So all the time, up until, yeah, probably about 8-9 months ago, all the time, studying A Course in Miracles all those years, no one knew about it other than people within Course in Miracles circles, and Billy was so petrified of telling anyone that I believed in God and that I was doing some kind of like alternative path or spiritual practice. And there was such fear there. I decided to, well, I was guided, post these on Facebook, and for 3 months I posted something every day, and that was so beautiful, and totally letting go, worrying about what everyone would think of me. And it's like, and that fear, you know, when you walk through that circle of fear, you know that you recognize there actually was no fear. It's just the thought there was fear, that there was fear. It's the concept of fear. You know, everyone's like, oh, wow, so supportive about it and loving, and that really helped me let go, that guidance to do that. And then I really noticed that it became an attachment for me. I wanted to be liked and loved, and I wanted to like and love other people's stuff so they would like and love mine. I really saw the attachment in there. I let go of doing that, and I've not felt guided to restart that. Again, that's been healed in me now. I feel it's like I've moved on to the next thing. I've actually kind of probably withdrawn in the last few months, where I've just not been joining any groups. I've not been listening to anybody, or going on Facebook, or listening to any YouTubes or anything. That seems to have fell away. It's like really how I'm practicing at the moment. There's no forgiveness process or anything, but it's like 20, I feel like I'm 24/7 present. I'm really present in the moment, and anything that happens about in my daily life, anything I'm shown, I'm really conscious of how I'm thinking about it, how I'm responding to it. So I suppose, for instance, say a thought comes up into the mind, I'm really present with that thought and allowing it to be. And when the feeling comes up, you know, that I used to label as, say, anger or fear or resentment or excitement or whatever, that hate, or when that fear comes up in the body, that feeling, I'm really just allowing it to be and being present with the discomfort, if there's discomfort there, not letting it sort of develop into an emotion. It's almost kind of like, you know, observing it. It just takes all the seriousness away from it. And you start to notice that this is just feelings that arising in the body. They don't mean anything. They've only got the meaning that we place on them. If we want to label it as fear, if we want to label it as worry, or let it attach and hold and grasp, and you know, that sensation, or that feeling, or that thought just quickly floats away. If we do that, if we just allow it to be, not try and press it back down, or park it for later, or shift it sideways, or justify it, because that was my thing. Like always, like trying to justify everything in my head. And just like I came to realize that this is totally incomprehensible for the brain. All this, like all the brain, it only knows what the 5 senses tell it. You know, what it touches, tastes, and sees, and feels, and really get your head around the fact that that's not true. None of this is true, and it's only really what's in your heart. So I think really now it's almost like I'm not consciously asking for guidance. I'm just letting love sort of lead the way almost. It's like I really feel in tune with myself, that I can tell when it's from love or it's from fear. Really letting love be the teacher and love be the healer. I really feel that 99% of the time, all I do is extend love. I just feel it so much. It's like, I just feel it so much in my heart. I just feel my heart is so open to everybody. And I just want to extend that. It's just so beautiful. Like, just as, you know, you feel this feeling of, you know, what you used to label as anger, worry, or whatever you want to call it. And like, you used to feel those emotions come up. I also feel this emotion of love come through, joy. It's just so beautiful to extend that. I think about it, it's like I hear people like Kate and Teddy and Steve and Dean and that like they're sort of like, they convey the message of the course so beautifully, so well. I don't feel I'm in a kind of like in that space where I convey that very, very well, but it doesn't really matter. All I do is just extend love. I just be an example of love. I just, to everybody that I meet and everyone that I have contact with. It's so painful now to have a thought of judgment or an egoic thought about someone or something. It's like a dagger in the heart. Like, you just feel it so much now, and it's like in this space that's created, it's like you can just recognize it so easily. And of course, having Billy as a partner and her on the same path is so beautiful. You know, it's nice to discuss the things with her about the day and her perspective and my perspective. And it's like in these last few months where I've really withdrawn from everyone and just sort of gone within, if you like, seem to have called these people in from all around the world. So there's a couple of people and they've just kind of like been drawn to me. And there's a couple of people in America, and there's one in Sweden, there's one in Germany, there's one here in Melbourne. I have like these dialogues with them, so they all take different forms. Sometimes it's emails with certain people's emails, other times it's Zoom calls, other times I'll leave a recorded message for them. They send me a recorded message back. It's really for me, because they're my mirror. Anything that comes up, you know, is there for my healing. I'm helping them, and you know, they're helping me. And that seems to be like what's happening recently. Like these people have been just drawn towards me, or I've been drawn towards them. Then it's just happened. And that's supposedly really any kind of really spiritual practice as such that I'm doing at the moment. Other than, like I say, I'm just being, well, when I say that, it's all a spiritual practice now. It's like, it's almost like there's nothing more to learn. Not that there was anything to ever learn. It was always just there. It was just, it just wasn't allowed to be seen because there's just so much shit in the way. And that's the perfection of it. It's like, you know, like Kate used to say things like, oh, it's such a blessing when this happens. You get that reaction because you get to see there's this unhealed belief in your mind. And I'm like, I can't see that, Kate, at the moment. All I want to do is literally rip my own face off. So I can't see how that's a blessing. But now I see the blessing, because it's like straight away, oh yeah, there's still an attachment there. There's still that story when, you know, feeling disrespected, because that was one of my big ones. If I was disrespected, that story used to really get me, and worrying about what other people think of me is a big one too. So this has been healing for me on this, because I've spoke about things along the journey which I've not spoken to people about before, because there's been a story there of protecting Billy's feelings, you know, especially about the affairs and visiting the gay saunas and things. And there's also been an element of shame from the behaviour in certain situations. And again, you know, talk about in that in defencelessness, my safety lies. So this is another letting go. This is another deepening of that. And you know, it's just been shown to us in every single moment and all these little interactions, and like really feel like I'm starting to see it more easily, more consistently. So awakening was never a goal, and I don't know if I class myself as being awake or realised, or it's not even like an issue to me. It's more like, it was always my goal, is to just become more peaceful, more loving on a day-to-day basis. And like, that's really, it's not even a focus anymore. It's just naturally and sort of like organically just developing this deepening of like, and I thought, wow, to be in this hell and get to this is so beautiful. And like the roller coaster, because it is a roller coaster, like everybody that starts to question the ego and the true nature and reality, whatever path they take, whichever way they go, Course in Miracles, non-dual Buddhism, whatever. Nobody is spared this tumultuous kind of journey, because such is the resistance, such is the fear, such is the resistance to letting go to love. And we've got this inner conflict, and the reality is we can just let go. For most people, in the most part, it has to be this gentle undoing. I was kind of thinking about this the other day. We're even so taken care of and provided for by God that we even lets us go through this like gentle undoing. It's almost like, it's like my son at the moment's got his learner's permit and he's learning to drive a car. Well, I'm not going to just put him in a car before he's had driving lessons or he's learnt the highway code, all the road rules. You're just going to chuck a child in a car. You're going to go through this almost like this learning, this school, this process of learning how to drive a car first. And it's almost like we go through that, and maybe that resonates with some people, maybe it doesn't. I mean, like I say, in the individual relationships, there's been other sort of letting goes and healings, but they're like the main ones to speak of. The only other thing I will add is that, particularly in the last year, I've really found that non-dual teachings has really helped me recognise that sense of being one with everything and not being separate, and being part of the totality and the absolute and the whole, not being a separate ego self-identity. So Sailor Bob is a guy I've been listening to in the last year. Familiar with Sailor Bob or not, but he's 92 now, and he's kind of had this, this awareness of not being a separate self for the last sort of 40, 50 years. And he's just been really helpful in that dropping in for me as well. So I suppose, yeah, that probably feels right to sort of just leave it at that. And maybe someone wants to ask a question or anything, then that's fine. Now, with the worrying about what people think, you can't possibly know what someone else thinks about you. You wouldn't have a faintest idea unless you ask them. And even then, you might not even really know what to think about you. It's just letting go of worrying about, because whatever they are thinking, whatever they are perceiving is their own shit. It's actually got nothing to do with you at all. It's all in them. It's their own stuff. I also used to do this thing. It's like being in a virtual reality room. So you're worrying about what they think of you, or they may have reacted to you in a certain way. Put yourself in their position. Why are they reacting the way they are? Why are they feeling the way they're feeling? What's happened to them during that day? Are they going through a tough time at home in the moment? Have they a problem at work? Have they got, problems in the marriage at the moment? Someone scolded them earlier this morning and now they're projecting onto you. And it's, we can only think about what they think of us. But you can also sort of put yourself in a position of thinking, okay, put yourself as them, try and imagine what they're thinking about the world. I always find quite helpful, actually, deep down, thinking about what they really think about you. And quite often it's like a loving thing. It's like they really respect you, or they really love you, or they really admire you. But their own shit stops them from saying that. Their own shit stops them from really extending love like everyone else. So, yeah, that's been massive for me, that letting go of worrying about what people think of me, because the worry's all in me. And what they actually do think about you doesn't matter. You've got to forgive yourself and forgive another. Like, I remember there was a story I heard quite early in the piece from Gary Renard. He was talking about his brother-in-law and how his brother-in-law hated Bill Clinton. Like, he just loathed Bill Clinton. And every time Bill Clinton came on the TV, he would go red in the face, leave the room, turn the TV off. He just couldn't handle Bill Clinton. Gary Renard said to his brother-in-law, you just got to forgive Bill Clinton. You just got to let it go and forgive yourself, because the forgiveness is really for you. No, I can't forgive Bill Clinton because he's doing this and he's doing that. He goes, Bill Clinton doesn't even know who you are. Bill Clinton has no idea who you are. He doesn't even know that you're watching. He doesn't even know that you're worried about what he's thinking. He's having a good time. He thinks he's the president of the United States. He thinks he's a body. He thinks he's real. So the forgiveness isn't for Bill Clinton. The forgiveness is for you. It's always for you, because you let go of the thing around Bill Clinton, and then you're free in your heart. You're the one that's healed, and you're the one that's released, and as a byproduct, he's also released, but you're the one that really gets the benefit from that. And that was one of the first things that actually really started to change my way of thinking, was that story from Gary, because Gary was an influence early on. It's like letting go of this stuff that we've got no control over. We're not responsible for what happens to us in form. All we're responsible for is the way we think about it and the way that we perceive it. What's happening in form, it's like Ken Watnick always talks about, there's nothing so blinding, I think he says, as perception of form. Just everything that's happening we just believe to be the real. Really, we've got to look past that, we've got to look underneath that, or over that, or we want to say, and just ultimately, one of the first biggest ones is recognizing that this is all illusory, this isn't real, this is all made up. And it's like, how can anything that's not real actually hurt you? It's like Course in Miracles say, this is a Course in Miracles, is nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. That's it. In essence, that's the whole book, and that's the whole way that we look at this outward picture. It's like this sort of readiness as well, isn't it? To like, you won't actually really truly let go of something until you're ready. And it's like, I used to think, oh, I've given this away 1,000 times before. I've forgiven this 1,000 times before. And then one day it just goes. You just let go. You're just in that moment. You're ready. Like, I think Gary talks about, the layers of an onion. It's like peeling the layers of an onion. You just peel a layer of an onion and it still looks like an onion, and then one day you peel that last layer and it's gone. And there's definitely been an impatience in me on the journey, if you like. Oh, I want to do it now. I just want to be done with this now. But it's funny, in that letting go of that, and letting go of that goal, that's when actually you do let go of it. The more you let go, the more clearer you get. The more easier it is to see the story, the attachment, the fear. They're still coming up. Those fears and those attachments still come up, but they just don't have the same bite anymore. It's like, Bob talks about a fangless tiger. It's trying to bite you, but it's not actually doing any damage because the fangs have gone, the bite's gone, the sting's gone out of it. You start to take it so much less seriously. But we're talking about sharing the stories. That's so beautiful to share the stories, and if we can really totally be vulnerable about it too, and be open about it, because as Teresa spoke about before, there's probably areas in all of us where we're sort of like holding back in a certain area, and we finally let go past that fear of worrying about what someone may perceive that to be, or go past any shame or guilt or anything we have. Just like that defenselessness and the safety lies in that openness. It's just another layer of the ego that's being shared, another layer of the ego that's been given away. Because talk about this is a course in undoing, isn't it? It's like it's undoing. Someone was speaking about the innocence before. We seem like we're born into this innocence, and the first sort of 3 or 4 years of our life, children we see are clearly innocent, and then we start taking on all these sort of beliefs and concepts and all these stories about ourselves, and the way we should be and the way we should act, and we've got to aspire to be this and we should be doing that, and learn this conditioning gets learned, and then we reach this point where we then try and undo it all again and get back to where we was at the start of just this innocence again. And you see it in pets, don't you? You see it in animals and things like that. They don't have this layer of conditioning that we have. Like my dog just shows me completely unconditional love. He doesn't see there's no story there of what left him outside yesterday or something like that. There's no story of I forgot to feed him yesterday or anything like that. It's just constantly showing this unconditional love. Like they haven't got that layer of conditioning, that story. just being willing to let it go and continue to just let it go, and the diligence and the vigilance for that. And until we get to that point, it's just a process. And in that being ready, get to that point where we are ready to let go. It's like all the times we have forgiven it and handed it over and looked at it and done a journaling on it or a forgiveness process on it or a Byron Katie, it's prepared us for that point of ultimately releasing it and letting it go. And with my story, Teddy was saying it's just different in form than other people's. It's all the same stuff, just in a different form. I suppose it is helpful when I talk to other people about it, be able to say it, and obviously it's doable, so to speak. If I can do it, who's come from no spiritual background, all these sort of compulsions and stuff, and ultimately work through that, then anyone can do it. We just got to let go and trust on the way, and it's step by step, and sometimes it's got to be some gentle, or it can be just spontaneous. Like Billy, she says to me, we talk about this even more now, she goes, I can't believe I used to just sit watching TV all night and just watch TV. That's the only thing out of my life, going to work and watching TV. And now, through all this pain and suffering that you seemingly caused me, all these times you cheated on me, all these times that you emotionally abused me, she went through 20 years, well, not 20 years, but first 17 years, particularly feeling that she wasn't actually loved by me. And maybe I couldn't show her that love, even if that love was there. She went through all that. But the beauty of it is now she gets to, her experience is one of complete freedom, complete love for her children. She's let go of all the control and attachment around her children, around her parents, around her friends, around her job. She used to just go to work and come home and just absolutely just talk all night about this person had done that. There's none of that now. She just lets it all go. She just lets it all be. And everyone around her has just changed. If she's healed, everyone around is healed with her. Again, it's the same with me. It's like it really is just my perception now. In that perfection, they just seem to change. They just heal with you. It can't really be described. It can't be intellectualized or beyond the mind's comprehension. It's just the miracle. Of course, the miracles talk about it. The love, the healing, the forgiveness. It really is like the changing of, talk about it being an outside picture of an inward condition. It's the healing of your inner perception, if you like, and then it's projected out. And it's impossible, no matter what's happening, it's impossible to see anything but love. It's like, I've probably feel to share this story of a guy on my tram. So I had a guy on my tram and he was sitting there, and I'd gone to the toilet and I came back, and he was sitting in the middle of the tram, playing music full blast, smoking a cigarette, abusing anybody that came anywhere near him. I walked down the side of the tram, and as I was walking towards him, he just wanted a confrontation. He was saying, as I was walking towards him, he said, "What the fucking hell do you want?" So I knew this was like, a response could have been, "Get off this tram, you shouldn't be doing that, you shouldn't be doing." And I just felt to say, "Can you please put the cigarette out and turn the music down? You're not allowed to smoke on the tram." And as I was saying this, projecting on me and attacking me back, and I walked up to him, and he looked like he ready to go at me. And I just put my arm on his shoulder, and I said, "It's okay, don't worry, everything's all right." And in that moment, in just me extending love to him, he just burst out crying. He just wanted someone to show him love. We all just want love, and he just wanted someone to just extend that love to him. In that moment, he just melted. He just went into a crying mess. I felt to say a little bit more, and he just said really calmly, he goes, "It's fine, it's okay, I'm going to turn it off. Can you just leave me alone now?" And I just, okay, that's the point's been made. Like, I've extended the love to him. Just a heartfelt moment of, like, the old way of doing it for me would be, yeah, he's getting off this tram no matter what. I'm going to throw him off head first if I need to. And just extending that love and showing him that it was reflected back to me. And you started to see all situations like that, no matter what's going on. Went to buy a car the other day. the guy was just so desperate to sell this car, and I could feel the energy, the story running behind. He's got to sell this car. He's got to sell this car. He needs to meet his targets, and he kept mentioning it. And I was so relaxed about it. So there's just no attachment to whether I bought this car or not. And I had a figure in my mind of I didn't want to spend more than that on this car, and I was happy to go somewhere else and buy this car. Yeah, I could just tell this angst and this feeling, and I just stayed present with how he was feeling and how I responded to that. And I just responded with love the whole way through the process and was kind to him. You know, I gave him a really good review, and he rang me personally and thanked me so much for all that. And towards the end of the interaction, he just completely relaxed. It slowly got from this person so full of angst. He just completely relaxed. It's like what I was conveying to him just put him at ease. It just put him at peace. It just let go of all the anxiety that he was seemingly in. It's like it's just you find every relation, every interaction just comes into that space now. And like, you know, certainly every time I speak to my brother, it's the same. We talk about, you know, worrying about what people think of you, and especially about me coming out spiritually. The love that, just like most people, they just actually want to be like you. They want to aspire to be at peace in this grace, in this feeling of being centered and open, and so open and soft and gentle. They want to be in that space too. And you just quickly realize it's like, you know, it's kind of like that story about, like, you know, the gay guy that kind of comes out, and then when he does come out, he suddenly realizes that no one cares. And it was the same with me coming out with a spiritual practice. No one actually cares. It's all this fear. It's all this made up. And he was talking about these knots. And they're actually, you know, fear is it literally is just a mental construct. It's just a word, fear. It's not real. And it's just another thing that we label as this feeling that comes up. And that's, like I say, where I'm really focused on it now, is this feeling that's coming up. I'm not going to label it as fear. I'm just going to label it as this feeling that's coming up in my body. I'm not going to let it become an emotion. I'm not going to label it, and I'm just going to let it pass. And it's almost, you almost start chuckling to yourself about it. It's not you. It's not who you really are. You really are can't be touched.
Well, I'd just like to say too, thanks, Graham. It's a lot of stuff in there for me. I'll have to listen to the recording again. I think found a lot of things you were talking about rung true for me. So thanks very much for coming today. I really enjoyed it.